And welcome, Dave's and Tiff podcast, ready to roll here another week. And we're going to talk some golf today because, well, when I asked last week about what would start next, what's another sporting event that could start up again, golf took the limelight a little bit over the weekend because you had the match, that charity match where you had Tiger, Phil Mickelson, you also had Peyton Manning, and then Tom Brady. Tiff, I don't know, did you get to see a little bit of that?
I got to catch a couple of holes on Sunday. It looked like an interesting event. There were a lot of people that they were crazed for sports. It said, 6 million people tuned in for the event on Sunday. A good cause, a lot of money going to charity, a lot of people watching the venue, watching the event. Just unfortunate how the weather basically played a very big factor in this event.
Yeah, it was coming down. Now, one of our guests today, well, our only guest today, because we're the highlight of the show anyway, but our guest is going to be Guy Yamamoto. Let's see if I can get this to work here. There we go. I think I'm getting it. Guy Yamamoto, who won the U.S. Amateur Public Links back in 1994, a former University of Hawaii golfer. And because he was the U.S. Public Links champion in 94, he qualified to play for the Masters in 95 and therefore played with Tiger Woods. He's the general manager now at the Royal Hawaiian Golf Course, which, Tiff, you have a nice background there of the course back there. So we'll talk to him about not only the sport and the business of golf in which it relates to how things have gone in this pandemic, but also about the event on Sunday in which you had this exhibition. Now, Tiff, do you golf at all?
Define golf.
Well, I always say I'm a therapeutic golfer, meaning that if you golf with me, you'll feel so much better about yourself. So that's really a way of saying I'm pretty crappy on it. And I made my New Year's resolution this year in which I wanted to improve in golf. I mean, when's the last time you actually played 18 holes?
Played around would probably be a few years ago. I define golf as finding more golf balls on the course than I do ones that I lose in a round. Having fun driving the cart around the course, that's always a great time. But to have actually played a round, it's been quite some time. I do have my own clubs. Driving ranges is a lot of fun, but maybe one of these days we can go over to our guest's course and have some fun.
Oh man, well, yeah, or have some stress. I mean, one of the things that really ticks me off about that sport is that, it's such a beautiful setting wherever you play. Like, you can go to any golf course. You can go to a public course. You can go to a private course. It's really beautiful. It's really serene. It's clean. And it sets itself up to, really be relaxing if you get some friends to play. But then that stupid white ball is so doggone small. And I guess all my life I've had trouble where if I had to use some kind of apparatus as a tool to play a sport, it bothers me. If I can't use just my hands, it's really a pain in the butt. So even tennis, it doesn't really ride with me well. Golf, racquetball, even I don't like soccer because I can't use my hands unless I'm the goalie. So, that ball is just too doggone small for the game. If it was a little bit bigger and maybe the clubs were bigger, maybe that would help me. What do you find the most irritating about golf?
Having that darn ball go straight.
I know.
It seems so simple, yet like you said, I grew up more with baseball as a kid, so being taught to have a line drive swing, and now if you're trying to go and be a decent golfer, you're having to go more of an uppercut or even, hitting the ball that's very close to the ground. Or, most of the time it is on the ground. So just having to change that style of swing has always been difficult, but just more so to have the ball go straight.
I know, I hear you. And, well, Guy's been one of the best. He's in the Hawaii Golf Hall of Fame. Guy Yamamoto will join us later. We'll also have our ever-popular Tiff's Corner. We'll give you our Dave and Tiff's guide to staying at home. And we got some new stuff today because we're going to talk about some of the positives of staying what has been the positives for either us personally or generally during this time in terms of having to stay at home because of the stay-at-home order. Some news, some breaking news, Tiff, by the way. Did you know that the NHL has decided to have come to an agreement on a proposal on how to do their playoffs should their season resume? And we talked last week about what can return. Baseball is MLB is talking about resuming their season, possibly playing like in a bubble in Disney resorts in Florida. NHL is talking about a possible playoff. The NBA is still kind of in talks about resuming their season in some way, maybe just going straight to playoffs, something like that. I think one of the big things is that next month, June, colleges can now voluntarily have their athletes come back and work out on their own in small groups. But it seems to me we're seeing the sports world getting to the point of opening up and getting not only just beyond the talking stage, but we're seeing some action.
We are, and like you talked about with the NHL, normally it's 8 teams per conference that makes the playoffs. Now they're talking 12 per conference, 24 make the postseason in general. And just like the NBA, most of their season was done. A lot of these teams had 10, 12, 14 games left in the regular season. So at least for the NHL, the standings were, for the most part, set. So it's just a matter of time as to where they pick from a list of bubble cities or host cities to be the venue of choice for, the conference playoffs. But it sounds like it could work. I mean, you have, the top 4 seeds can be determined by a round-robin playoff. 5 through 12 can be basically in a qualifying round situation, and then you just sort of go into your playoffs from that vantage point. But it seems as if everything has a chance to develop, they have sort of the blueprint or the outline to begin to make this happen. I mean, they said, roughly 50 personnel per team. You can have a small number of a support staff to be there as well. Hotels, transportation, everything seems to be set in place if you can get through your timeline of dates.
And you know what? I kind of think what's the real driver of all these other major sports. Now, let me see if I get this right. Some of the other countries' professional sports like Korean baseball and the German, am I going to get this right? Bundesliga, soccer, the professional football, Bundesliga, they don't care. But I think in the United States, the driver is the fact that the NFL has not moved away from their regular timeline. They have been saying, we held a draft, we're going to stick to what our schedule, we released the schedule, and they're kind of moving their ship as if everything's going to be good to go by the time regular season is supposed to start. They'll be able to open training camp on time. And when that's the biggest popularity sport on television, and as far as, just general popularity, when you got them saying, we're going to do it when we're going to start, these other guys are trying to say, we can't just lose ourselves and let football just run with it come August, even from July even. They want to get something in there to get a little piece of this pie of sport live before football takes over. And I think, they're driving NHL, they're driving NBA to get something in, and even MLB, they're trying to get something going before football dominates things again. And the NFL is lucky. Their timeline is further on ahead, so they have a chance to kind of say all this stuff, hope for the best, and let all the other sports leagues kind of fodder around.
Oh, and kudos to the NHL for figuring this out, first off, because they are in the same sense of the NBA where the majority of their season had already been done. Now, granted, there are more fans of the NBA than the NHL, and that might make a lot of our neighbors to the north very unhappy because hockey is the sport of Canada. But the fact that the NHL has decided to up their game and start to put things into place, it almost could be a domino effect. And I look at the NBA and I look at Major League Baseball as being the next 2 in line to figure out if certain cities become the hub cities for these NHL playoffs, then you'll have other cities that could be open for the NBA, and then it kind of trickles down into Major League Baseball. So kudos to the NHL for starting that timeline.
Yeah, they're starting it. They're talking. I mean, I hope things get going. We're going to have golf coming back again, as we talked about. We're going to talk a little bit about golf, but actually a golf competition getting underway in the ensuing weeks. We've seen tennis come back to earth, and I think we're going to have our first guest ready to come on. It's going to be Guy Yamamoto. Let's see if we can get him in here. I love this Zoom. Zoom is
a lot of people
awesome.
like it. A lot of people don't like it. There he is.
Guy, can you hear us there? And we see his hand. He has a very nice background. I'm guessing that is also the Royal Hawaiian Golf Course. And Guy, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
All right, Guy. Well, thank you so much for joining the Dave and Tiff podcast. I'm going to guess that your background is your course, the Royal Hawaiian Golf Course?
Yeah, I'm cheating a little bit because if I had the background, the actual background behind me, I'd be backlit. So I took a picture of it. And I'm facing the sun. So.
Oh, look at you with the cinematic design with light and everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my hand will just. Oh no, yeah, my hand kind of disappears into the background.
You can see my partner Tiff Wells. His backdrop is also the Royal Hawaiian Golf Course. So we're definitely spoofed. And here I'm gonna add my little virtual background here to talk about the topic we're at hand. And there we go. So before we get into the match, which was on Sunday, which had that celebrity matchup with Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady, in the golf business, let's ask this Guy, how has this period of pandemic affected not only your course, but the business of golf?
Well, as you know, in Hawaii, golf was shut down from, what was it, entire month of April, basically. I think we were open April 1st, and the mandate started on the 2nd and lasted all the way up to May 1st. So, it was tough. Golf course experiences expenses, even though we don't have people playing. The golf course is a living, breathing entity, and grass has to be cut. And although no one's playing it, so there's no divots being made and things like that, but grass has to be cut. We have to maintain a particular height. Otherwise, when we come back to business and we start cutting the greens like down to normal playing heights, it would either grass would brown out or it would die. And there's weeding to be done, whether it's manually or chemically, and just the whole even disease pressures. During that period, fortunately the weather was good, so didn't have too much of disease pressure, but those things all still exist and contribute to our expenses. So it was a tough month financially, for all golf courses.
So when you were able to open up, was it sudden this influx of players wanting to play? They've been chomping at the bit, or was it kind of a little transition where, hey, we are open and back to normal kind of thing?
It was quite the flood of golfers. I think. Just being outdoors, it felt relatively safe for the public. With all the social distancing rules that were in the mandate, one player per card unless your immediate family and so on and so forth. It really made it a safe atmosphere. Whereas, I've read some articles, as far as people going back to shopping, there seemed to be some kind of hesitancy for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was about to ask, what are the differences in operations have you done? So one of the things is you can only ride one per cart unless you're a family member. Is there any other differences in terms of if I go to play that's different from normal?
Yeah, for us and the private golf courses, our tee times have to be a minimum of 12 minutes apart. And I think prior to the mandates, some golf courses were as close as 7 minutes. So it, puts not only a physical space, but a space in the amount of people you can actually accommodate per day. I know at the municipals, they're not allowing standbys, so you can't just show up at the window and get out to play. You got to call in to make a tee time. So those kinds of things are different. for us, we try to be very service oriented. So, we pick you up at your cart and we clean your clubs and take you back to your car when it's done. And all those things are restricted. And the mandate is to help protect our employees, not only the public. And so limiting their exposure to people and, things like that. So the one player per cart issue and the tee time spacing definitely reduced the amount of open space for people to play. Thus creating a shortage of tee times, if you would. So the supply and demand needle has kind of shifted, the other way. And so that's initially why it was really hard to get a tee time that first few weeks.
Oh gosh, I can imagine. Guy Yamamoto joining us here on the Dave and Tiff podcast. Now let's see if I got this correct. 94, you win. You're the U.S. Amateur Public Links Champion. 94, is that correct?
That's correct. 1994.
And then because of that victory or that title, you were able to qualify and play in the 95 Masters, correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, I think I spoke to you and I've interviewed you a couple of times and I always get this wrong, but I read somewhere that you're the only person from Hawaii to have played in the Masters, but has there been someone else?
No, there's 5 of us that have got to play the Masters. And each person, except for Casey Watabu and I, have qualified in a different way. So back in the 70s, the Walker Cup team could play in the Masters. So the 10 players there, as well as the semifinalists in the U.S. Amateur. So back in I believe it was 78, Stan Souza was in the semifinals of the U.S. Amateur and qualified to play in the Masters. So he was the first, actually, from Hawaii to play. And then 1990, David Ishii won the Hawaiian Open. And as a PGA Tour winner, you get exempt to the majors. So David was able to play in 1990. I won the Amateur Public Links in 1995. That got me in. And in 2006, Dean Wilson won the international tournament in Castle Pines. So that's how he qualified for the Masters. And that same year, Casey Watabu won the U.S. Amateur Public Links. And I think that was in Washington State. He beat Anthony Kim in the finals and qualified as well. So currently 5 of us.
Oh, that's an elite, very elite group, to say the least. And I know you played that year in 95. Tiger Woods was, I think, the U.S. Amateur champion at that year. So you got a chance to play with him. I know you showed me that picture of you guys in Georgia. And that brings us up to what happened on Sunday. And, we're all starved for some live sports. What did you think about that whole Sunday exhibition, the match it was called, where you had the Woods, Peyton Manning team versus the Mickelson, Brady team?
I give them a lot of credit. I think for the average weekend golfer, if it was raining that much, they'd just say, forget it. We're packing it in. We're going to go have some lunch and beverages. But they played. They endured all of that bad weather and got out and played. And so I think the conditions being a lot more difficult just because of the wetness. You got to keep your equipment dry. They didn't have any caddies with them, so it was up to them. And of course they had those really cool golf carts, especially Tiger's one was all painted up, in his Sunday red. And in fact, I told the local our local EasyGo rep, Jay Inazumi, I go, hey Jay, you got to paint a replica cart like that and get it out in the fleet.
Oh, one of the kind of the sub stories about those two, if we go to the 2 professional golfers in Mickelson and Woods was kind of this thing where we hadn't seen him for a while because of his injuries. He had stepped away from, I think, 2 or 3 previous tournaments. So his last victory in the Masters last year, he couldn't play again after that. So this is the first time I think people saw him in, I don't know how long. And, it's a surgically repaired back. I can't relate to how impactful a back injury can be to a golfer, but recovering from something like that, obviously it's very challenging, but if you could give us some insight into recovering from a back injury for a golfer, what is that entail?
Well, like in any other sport, injuries are part of it, and how you recover and possibly even recover from an injury is difficult. And for a golfer, your back is your central. It'd be like the axle of a car. Your body, your swing revolves around the spine, and so it's very key. I mean, back injuries have derailed a lot of great golf careers. I think probably the most notable besides Tiger, Fred Couples would be one of the more recent ones. Wins the '92 Masters, and I think his back pops about a year or two later. And if you look at his production and the amount of golf he plays after that, it's very limited. I know he's tried many options to get his back into shape, stem cells, that blood spinning thing, and they've done a whole bunch of things, but I think he has a chronic back problem, and probably, besides Tiger, one of the more famous back injuries out on tour. But absolutely, I think it's not to say that you need every athlete doesn't need every part of their body, but I would say if you're playing defensive end and you've got a sprained finger, you'll still be able to, take your first move and pass that offensive lineman and get to the quarterback. But for a golfer, if you got a sprained finger, because you use your entire body for the swing, and you grip the club and you need to stand and have balance, it's critical. Any little injury could sideline a golfer. Anthony Kim, for example, has a bad wrist, and that ended his career.
Mm.
Guy, of the four golfers in the match, who would you pick to want to be on your team and why?
It's hard not to pick Tiger. He is the ultimate competitor. Laser focus, and he's always been able to make the putt whenever he needs it. I think besides Jack Nicklaus, he's probably whenever it needs to be in the hole, that's the guy you want pulling the shot off for you. Kind of like like the last dance, right? Who would you want to take the last shot? In golf, definitely be Tiger.
Hey, how about that shot Brady had? I forgot what hole it was, but for a birdie from the not the rough, but from the fairway. Have you ever hit a shot like that yourself?
Maybe not in that exact moment with somebody breathing down your throat saying, "Hey, I want a piece of you." But that was like pretty incredible that he could pull it off during that time. But when I played in the Masters, I hold out a shot from the fairway on the 10th hole to make an eagle, and so I've got these crystal goblets as a reminder of that.
Wow. And that's pressure too. That's at the Masters. That's not just at any old course or any old tournament. My goodness. Hey, if you wanted to get a tee time at your course, or if there's anything going down at your place coming up, what's the best way to do that?
You can call the pro shop, and they'd be happy to look up a tee time for you. If you're planning on playing the weekend, probably you need to call 2 weeks out, because it fills up pretty quick on the weekends. Weekdays not as critical, and our prices are still the same, and course is actually in good shape. It hasn't rained a whole bunch. Rained a little bit overnight this past evening, but for the most part, carts are off the cart path, and you can drive up to your ball, so it makes it playing here a little easier.
It's the windward side. You have the passing showers.
That's right. Like in your background, it wouldn't be that green if it didn't rain, right?
Hey, Guy, I wanted to ask a couple more questions. One of them is, who do you know, a local celebrity type person that's a pretty doggone good golfer? Do you know any that come to mind?
Let's see. I played golf with Ben Vegas.
Oh,
Excellent musician, outstanding singer, songwriter. What a musical talent, and he's a pretty good golfer. He can hold his own.
right on. And the last question I have, You know, I'm a therapeutic golfer, meaning if people golf with me, you feel much better about yourself. So I made it my New Year's resolution this year was to improve golfing in my game, which is relative because I'm pretty terrible at it. But what I've been doing in this stay-at-home thing, I would just go to a park and, you know, get those wiffle balls, the golf wiffle balls,
Okay.
and just, you know, practice using my 7-iron and then my wedge just to, you know, get good, consistent contact. Would that be a good way for me to kind of improve myself, or should I do something else?
You know, any kind of practice helps, I would say. But if you're looking maybe to improve your score, you know, I think the first thing that deteriorates whenever we don't play is our short game, our chipping and our putting. And so now that golf courses are open, you can go and practice putt. But I think, you know, it's possible to chip in your yard and, you know, just get your wedge or, you know, whatever you use to pitch around the greens. It's something that would feel, you know, you could pretty much emulate that portion of the golf game at home or in the park, you know, and you could use, you know, real golf balls and get a feel for it. And I you know, usually it's not only beneficial for practicing, but, you know, it's something that directly can improve the score of your round.
Okay, so I'll keep on doing that, practice some chipping. I got a long way to go, so I got a lot of stuff to do, but I'll definitely start with that. Guy Yamamoto, I want to thank you so much for joining our podcast, and continued success over at Royal Hawaiian. Hopefully the rules will expand a little bit so we can get a little bit more tee times out there.
Well, you know, for the people who've come to play golf, thank you for remembering us. And, you know, for, you know, you and Tiff, hey, thanks for keeping us entertained. I know talking about sports when there's not much sports going on, it's been a tough, limited resources for you guys. So, you know, it's credit to you guys that you can make good stories come out, human interest, and, you know, my hat's off to you guys as well.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for joining
Thank
us,
you,
Guy.
Guy.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care. That's Guy Yamamoto. He's the 94 U.S. Amateur Public Links champion, as well as they played in the 95 Masters. So I appreciate Guy joining us right there. Hey, Tiff, you know,
We got to fix our divots.
I make a lot of divots.
Lucky thing for me is that, well, my fiance and I, we moved into a condo last year, so we don't really have a backyard or a place to practice my chipping and putting. I'd have to walk down the street to the local park to do so. Just remember, Dave, for your wife's sake, fix the divots in the backyard.
My backyard has so many little holes. I was just finishing patching up some of them. So all I do is just add to the holes. You know, Guy mentioned about, you know, how tough it was for the golf business during this time, but it's been tough for all of us. So let's go to our Dave and Tiff's guide to staying at home. And today we kind of wanted to talk about some of the positives that has happened to either us personally or in general that has happened during this period of time. Something that, for you, what would it be? Like either personal or general that has been a positive during this period?
Positive for me. Well, for those who don't know, I got engaged. I got engaged this past March. So it has given my fiance and I a whole bunch of time to begin wedding planning. So whether it's you know, looking at venues, now nothing's basically open. So it's been a lot of, you know, sending feelers out and getting some responses back. But it's given us a chance to reach out to people that would be on our guest list to, you know, get, you know, names, addresses, and those kind of things to give us and create. We created a spreadsheet. So it's helped us with all this downtime to begin and formulate some wedding plans. Now I know you don't have to because, well, you're married already, but yeah, that's been a very positive thing for myself these last few weeks.
Well, yeah, and congratulations to you and Taryn. I must say, you know, one of the biggest positives of this whole stay-at-home order, traffic and parking. Good grief. You know, traffic is one of my biggest peeves because nothing. It's just a waste of time to just sit in there, and you're just frustrated to be able to go to places and not have to deal with traffic, no matter what time of day, pretty much. And then the parking, anywhere you go, it seems like, oh, no problem with parking. So that has been a huge positive for this period of time. Anything else for you?
Unless you go to the beach or you're going to a place that has a trail to go hiking. I've heard those two have had a lot of issues hiking.
Don't tell me about the hiking thing. I live on a street with a trail, so let me tell you, let's not go there.
All right.
Here, I got another one. I haven't had to wear a collared shirt or long pants in 3 months. That has been no. I wear pants. I wear shorts.
You wear pants. Okay, that was gonna be my next question. You're wearing clean
I have
pants
pants
every
under
day.
here, but
okay.
The fact that you don't have to dress up. You can just wear whatever, and be casual. I mean, that's great. I don't have to think as much. I don't have to iron in the morning before I go. Although I see you wearing a collared shirt, so even you dress nicely.
First time in a couple weeks that a collared shirt has been on. Heck, I wore a basketball jersey for our last podcast with Derek Lowe.
That's right. And I should tell everyone listening to this that it's because of you that my dress code had to increase during Rainbow Wahine basketball games, because you dress so nicely. I'm here and Tiff is here, so I had to bring my game up for the attire. What's another positive, I think, has been the added respect that the healthcare workers, the profession is getting. Like after 9/11, a lot of respect went to the firefighters and police officers because of their work in New York. And so around the country, that profession got an added boost in respect. I think healthcare workers now, doctors, nurses, even the paramedics, and still the first responder guys, that position of those professions have gotten a boost in terms of PR, but also the added respect for what they do and what they have to go through. So that's been a nice positive as well.
And this island is so small that we both know a whole bunch of people, whether they're direct family or, a lot of friends that are in the medical field, nurses, doctors, other personnel, a lot of people that are in this field. And so a lot of them have families. And so that what they are doing and continuing to do, our hats are off to them.
And the one last thing positive, I interviewed Dr. Julius Pham from Queens for my other podcast, the All In Podcast with Dave Kawada. Nice plug. But he said his kids haven't had a runny nose in weeks. That's because when you don't go to school, you're not interacting with other kids and getting the runny nose and the colds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure a lot of parents with especially smaller kids, that's been a good thing. So,
I also think in general, I've seen a lot of this on social media, that many of the graduating class of 2020 from private, public high schools, elementary, intermediate, there have been a whole lot of celebrations in different ways that parents, family, and friends have gotten creative. There have been so many sort of drive-bys where you'll go by the kid's house and give them a lei, take a picture, social distancing, of course, wearing the mask, but just being able to honor and celebrate them, because their achievements aren't going to go away. Yes, most of their senior year was taken away, especially the high school kids, that they're never going to get this back. But the fact that you're able to, for however long you're there, 10, 15 seconds, couple minutes, just to talk story and just to give them the celebration they deserve. And kudos to these volunteers and all the schools out there that are figuring out different ways to still have your graduation exercises. Yes, they're different, but you're still having them. So kudos to them for making these seniors feel as if they're going through their normal celebrations.
Indeed, that has been a definite plus as well. All right, let's wrap things up here and let's go into Tiff's Corner, because the ever popular conclusion of our podcast is what's going on in Tiff's Corner.
Dave, you brought up the Bundesliga. Well, over the weekend, there were several venues over in Germany that have pumped in virtual crowd noise during soccer matches. So we brought this up a couple of weeks ago. How would the Stan Sheriff Center be able to add virtual crowd noise for Rainbow Wahine basketball, for all the other sports, whether than the Stan Sheriff Center, Les Murakami Stadium, Rainbow Wahine Softball Stadium, Aloha Stadium? How would you go about doing this? How creative could you be if you were in the marketing department?
Well, if you try to record something now, there isn't a place we can get crowd noise, right? Because there's no crowds anywhere. So you'd have to dig into the vats and edit out, maybe go back YouTube and find great college and football games and maybe just edit out just the crowd sounds and piece it together and make a kind of a recurring loop of these different types of things. That would be my first go at it.
I still think if you're in the marketing department, you could, if you in fact don't have fans in the stands, you could ask fans to make a cutout. Granted, keep it G-rated, but again, be creative. Get a cardboard cutout of fans, of individuals, and for a set price, they get to be in the arena. And yes, you wouldn't have the actual person there, but to still have something in the seats as opposed to nothing could go a long way towards somehow doing a little bit of fundraising in these trying times.
Oh, and you talked about it. You can have businesses buy ads as a person, sitting here is company A, sitting here is company B, and they could, just do their thing. Parents or whoever can pay for, it's like buying a ticket, right? You pay for a ticket for a seat, but you pay for a spot in an area where the camera will go and they'll show them or something like that. Hi, Mom, or something like that.
Let's go out to Florida. The Pensacola Blue Wahoos, they're the AA affiliate of the Minnesota Twins, have placed their stadium on Airbnb. Now, for $1,500 a night, you can stay at the ballpark. It gets you full access to the clubhouse. You have a large bedroom with 10 beds. You get use of the batting cage and the field. There were 30 booking requests in the first 24 hours. And in checking in the last couple of days, the entire month of May and June, those listings were all gone in 24 hours.
So they sleep in the clubhouse, kind of like.
Yes. There'd be like a large bedroom within the clubhouse, would have 10 beds, and you have the entire usage of the field as well as the batting cage.
Hey, I'd be considering that. That'll be a blast. We have a run of the muck of a whole stadium. That's pretty cool. That's creative.
Especially for these minor league teams where there have been so many that are disbanding. The fact that these teams and these departments are being, again, like you said, creative to find ways to generate revenue, bring in money, because you don't know when your season's going to come back.
I like the fact that the team name is called the Wahoos.
Yes.
Anything else in the corner there, Tiff?
Let's keep it local. Last week, Thursday, an anonymous donor paid for the groceries of roughly 2,000 senior citizens, dubbed Operation Kupuna, at Foodland Farms, Foodland, and Sack and Save establishments around the state. And again, this donor who has somehow remained anonymous, able to do a generous act and pay it forward. So kudos to that person. And just how cool is it for these senior citizens that get to have an hour at this venue by themselves with basically everybody that's in their age group and demographic, and then you walk up to the counter and you reach for your purse, you reach for your wallet, and you're told, oh, don't worry, your groceries have been paid for.
They're probably wishing, some of them, I should have got some more when they got to the checkout counter. Doggone it, I should have got those steaks. But that is very generous, and kind of ties back to the whole charity golf thing on Sunday as well. 20 million raised for COVID-19 relief organizations. So a lot of generous, that's another positive. A lot of generous people have been coming out of the woodwork since this pandemic has hit.
Definitely. And something that came out yesterday on Monday, again, we're doing our podcast on Tuesday, should be released sometime later in the week. The HHSA announcing their 12-member class for the Hall of Honor, and that's something that we can get into next week with our guest from scoringlive.com, Kalani Takase.
Yeah, we'll dig into that because that is a great honor. Some of the greatest athletes to ever come out of Hawaii have been honored as part of the HHSAA Hall of Honor. So we'll be looking forward to that. Cool. Anything else?
That is it. And we have other high schools, public and private, going through their commencements this week. So if you know anybody, or even if you don't, even if you live near a high school, get out, honk your horn, give a lay, do some sort of celebration, because these young men and these young women truly deserve it from our entire community and our entire states.
Yes, they do. And whatever you can do for any senior that you know, give them some love because they're missing out on a lot what would have been a great senior year and all that sort of stuff. So kudos to them and kudos to everybody here. Hey, we're going to wrap this podcast up. I want to let me get this sign up right now. Thank our guest today, Guy Yamamoto. There we go. Guy Yamamoto, who was a 94 U.S. Amateur Public Links champion, played in the 95 Masters, former UH golfer, GM at the Royal Hawaiian Golf Course, for which, if you want to get a tee time, look at Tiff's background, how beautiful that course is. And for you Facebook watchers and get a tee time there, I want to thank him for joining us. And Tiff, thank you again for joining us with everybody else here for the Dave and Tiff podcast. We look forward to next week.
Aloha.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.